What's up guys, my name is Scott and today we're going to look at the brand new VST plugin from IgniteAmps. Now if that name rings a bell, that's most likely because you're a guitar player and you really are into their Emissary amp simulator as well as their NAD IR cabinet impulse response loader. However, their latest plugin is in the way of equalization, aptly titled the PTEq-X. It's a combination of three famous vintage passive equalizers, and in fact, I'm going to show how this plugin can successfully pull off the low end trick. So let's open up Sonar and get started. So as I mentioned, we have three famous passive equalizers here. The one on the top, that's going to be the MEQ-5 mid-range equalizer. The one in the middle is the PTEq-1A equalizer. And then finally, we have the Hl3 C Filter. The manual states also that the signal path of each component of the real actual analog circuits were taken into account and modeled as best as they could. On top of trying to stay as true as possible, they made some versatility tweaks for CPU consumption. So this plugin obviously can be used in any DAW where you can use VSTs or AU plugins, and you can use it for EQ, tracking, mixing, or mastering. When you read the manual, you're going to see a huge list of features, but I wanted to point out a couple that I thought were very interesting. The first of which being that there are additional selectable frequency ranges on the PTEq-1A model when compared to the original design, which is pretty sweet. Moving on, we have refined filters frequency precision for the MEQ-5 and the Hl3 C models. There are switchable equalizers and tube stage modeling for better CPU management, so you have a lot more control of how much load you want to put on your CPU. So if you're recording or tracking, you can lower it, or if you're mixing, you can increase CPU load. So a lot more control. That's always a good thing. And the last thing I wanted to mention here, there's switchable linear phase oversampling for aliasing reduction. So these four things are not the only main features, but the four that I thought were the most impressive, especially considering that this is a free plugin, guys. So this is pretty impressive. All right, so looking at this, anyone who is familiar with the actual hardware itself, you're going to feel right at home because the plugin clearly has been designed as close as possible to what the real gear actually looks like. So it won't be that difficult for you to understand what's going on. But with that said, it's really not a complicated piece of software to understand. The layout is pretty simple. It's more learning how the EQ itself actually works, which we will get into a bit more detail later on in the video when we do the low end trick. So stick around for that. The very top here, we've got the presets management system. This is a proprietary presets management system from IgniteAmps, so you can import or export bank files and copy or paste various settings you come up with. Pretty much everything you'd expect. And moving on, so we're going to work from left to right, top to bottom in this plugin. So obviously the first thing, we have a little knob here that says in. Basically just your power switch. You can turn it on, turn it off. So up would be on, down would be off. After that, we've got the low peak frequency selector. So 200, 300, 500, 700, 1000, pretty simple. So it's a rotary switch, as you can see here. And yeah, you can just select which frequency you would like to manipulate. And then you have the low peak boost. So this would control the gain applied to the low frequency that you just selected. Pretty simple. You've got the low dip frequency selector. 11 positions here. Rotary switch again. Just pick which frequency you want to mess with. And then you've got mid-dip attenuation. So this is the amount of attenuation applied to the frequency that you just selected. After that, we've got the high peak frequency selector. So we've got 5 positions here. After that's the high peak boost. Again, same thing. You control how much boost you want to apply to the selected frequency. One thing to note, when it's set to 0, there's actually no boost being applied. And that's really, you can think of that for this entire plugin. If it's set at 0 or if it's set at the stock setting, like 0, there will be no boost or attenuation or gain applied. So those are the controls for the MEQ-5. Pretty simple. Let's go ahead and move on to the PTEq-1A. And this actually has its own dedicated power switch. So up is on, off would be down. By the way, the PTEq-1A is completely independent from the triode gain stage status. So even if they're part of the same circuit, you can have the same tube switch on. No big deal. After that, the loop low frequency boost, like always. We talked about this previously. When this is set to 0, there's no boost. Low frequency selector, 6 positions, just like the previous. Low frequency attenuation, again, just like the previous. Also, again, when set to 0, no audible cut will be applied. Higher frequency bandwidth. Okay, so this is the bandwidth or the quality factor of the high frequency boost. So anti-clockwise will be a sharp, and then a sharper bell, I should say. Clockwise will be a broad bell. Okay, so this is you're controlling how much of a frequency is going to be cut here. After that, you get the high frequency boost. So again, controlling the amount of gain applied to high frequencies. Nothing crazy. And again, when set to 0, no boost will be applied. High frequency boost selector, okay? 7 positions here. High frequency attenuation. Same as all previously before mentioned. And again, set to 0, no audible cut. And then finally, the high frequency attenuation selector. 6 positions here. So, that does it for the PTEq-1A equalizer controls. Now let's actually, if you see right here, there's an interesting thing. We have these tube gain stage controls. So obviously in the off position, you're going to save a lot of CPU, but when it's on, you're going to have a very accurate and advanced simulation algorithm, kind of like the ones that are used in electronic CAD software. But here you're going to have real-time processing capability. And with that, it'll be a detailed dynamic response. This translates into a mix by being more rich or pleasant. You know, you can add harmonies or make your track sound more lively. That's what that means in the terms of a mix. And again, remember, this selector has nothing to do with the PTEq-1A. It's just located near it. So this is its own separate thing. So if you select the tube here, you got 4 available tubes. To know which one you should select, basically you should go through all 4 and see which one sounds good for you. And finally, the third EQ. This is the Hl3 C Filter. And this one's really simple. So again, you got the power slicks like all the other ones. But basically, it's just a high pass and low pass filter selector with 11 positions on each. You know, choose where you want a high pass or low pass and get her done. It's super simple. So down here on the footer, I want to make a couple of notes here to avoid some confusion, especially about input level and oversampling. So with input level, you're actually creating the amount of signal going through the circuit, okay? So the default here is 0 or unity gain. But it's important to note that this control acts before the tube gain stage. Okay, so it's like a pre-effects, right? So that's your input level. Oversampling, okay, this is the internal processing sample rate of the plugin. Okay, so obviously the higher the oversampling, the higher the CPU usage, but higher the quality. So what I would recommend is you turn oversampling off when you're actually using it and mixing with it. But when you go to bounce, make sure you turn it on. This will allow you to take advantage of the better quality of oversampling. So this is the meat and potatoes of the video, probably what you've been waiting for. As this is a Pultec style plugin, you can pull off the low end trick, which can only be done with this style of a plugin due to the boost and attenuation feature. So how this works is you essentially boost and attenuate at the exact same frequency. But the attenuation frequency is just a bit higher than the actual boost frequency, so you're going to create a very unique EQ curve. Now, because IgniteAmps has a very faithful recreation here, I can show you what this EQ curve will look like. So I've got a track here already set up with pink noise being pushed through. Right now, we just have a flat EQ response because the effect has not been applied. But if I apply the effect, we can see what happens to the EQ response. Now that you can see the response and see how it works, I'm sure you are very interested to see what it does in terms of a real-world application. So this particular trick is often used on a kick drum, so that's what I'm going to do. We're going to load up a kick drum track and have a listen. So here's that kick drum track. Let's listen to what the track sounds like without the effect applied. Okay, now let's enable the effect and tell me what you can hear. Alright, so if you said, Scott, that sounds a lot thicker, almost more full, perhaps round, and a lot less thin and papery, then you'd be correct. This trick added a nice round thickness to our kick drum, and it removed that paper thinness that came with it. And that's really the trick. It's not complicated, and it's rather typical of our lives. Usually the most simple things are the best things. So of course you can use this on other things than just kick drums, but you have to remember one thing about this EQ style. This is not meant for surgical work. You'll want to use this to cut and boost frequencies at the same time, or focus on lows and highs, or add more oomph or air. You know, practical applications for this could be mid-range boosts or cuts for guitars or vocals. You could help smooth out harsh cymbals. You could even throw it on your master bus and make the entire mix sound a bit more smooth. So keep that in mind. This is not a surgical EQ operation. So what's my final verdict? Well, it's free. So there's no reason why you shouldn't be downloading this and putting it in your collection. This thing is absolutely great. This plugin is going directly on my mastering train, I can tell you that right now. I definitely recommend you downloading it and adding it into your workflow. Anyway guys, that about does it for this video. I'm curious to know your opinion about this new PTEq-X from IgniteAmps. You know, do you like it? Do you think it sounds good? What do you think about it? I'd be curious to know. If you found this video helpful, a like rating is always appreciated. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, because more videos are always on the way. Thanks a lot guys, I appreciate it. Have a good one.